When I got the job at Eastbridge University's library, I thought I was lucky. It wasn't a glamorous position. I wasn't teaching or researching anything exciting, but it paid better than retail, and I could be alone most of the day. That suited me just fine. I was told I'd be working in the annex. That was what they called the old wing in the basement, a part of the library that most students didn't even know existed. The walls down there were lined with crumbling bricks. The air smelled like wet paper, and the overhead lights buzzed and flickered like they were about to give out. My supervisor, a pale man named Mr. Thorne, handed me a heavy iron key and said, "Don't stay past midnight, and don't read anything out loud." I laughed. He didn't. The first few days were easy enough. I was supposed to sort through old boxes of books, some of them centuries old, then decide which ones were worth keeping. Most were dusty, water damaged, and full of mold. Some were written in Latin, some in French, and a few in languages I couldn't even begin to identify. I had a big table, a computer that barely worked, and a logbook where I wrote down every title, author, and any notes I thought were important. On my fourth day, I found a book that changed everything. It was small, bound in some kind of black leather that felt wrong under my fingertips, too smooth, too warm. No title on the cover, no author name, just a single, crooked symbol burned into the center. A circle split down the middle with jagged lines shooting out from it. I opened it carefully, expecting the usual, weird script, old ink, maybe a drawing or two. Instead, I saw something that made me stop breathing. The first sentence on the first page said, "He found the book on his fourth day." I stared at the words, then at the date on my logbook. It was my fourth day. This wasn't a mistake or a coincidence. It described exactly what had just happened. My hands shook as I turned the page. His hands trembled. He turned the page. Anyway, I slammed the book shut. I sat at the table for a long time, just staring at the book. It lay there, closed, like it was waiting for me to open it again. My heart was pounding, and my mouth was dry. I knew what I'd read. I hadn't imagined it. I thought maybe someone was playing a prank. Maybe the book was some kind of interactive art project, but the pages were yellowed and brittle. The ink looked faded and uneven, like it had been written by hand. A long time ago, I grabbed my phone and snapped a picture of the page, but when I looked at the screen, it was just blank. The picture showed nothing but an empty sheet of paper. No text, no writing, nothing. I took another picture. Same result. My hands were sweating now. I didn't want to touch it again, but I had to know. Carefully, I opened the book to the next page. He tried to take a picture. The page stayed blank. I jumped back and knocked over my chair. It clattered to the floor, loud in the quiet. Basement. I left the book there and ran upstairs. Mr. Thorne was gone for the day. The rest of the library was empty too. It was past 6 p.m. The students had all left, and the night staff wouldn't show up for another hour. I paced the main floor for a while, then finally went back down. I don't know why. Maybe I didn't want to leave the book alone. Maybe I was afraid of what might happen if I did. The book was still on the table, untouched. I picked it up like it might bite me. There was something I hadn't noticed before. On the very back page, written in small red ink, were the words, "Cataloged, but never read." That is the rule. I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about the pages, about how they changed when I turned them. Who wrote that book? How did it know what I was doing? The next morning, I brought it to Mr. Thorne. He didn't even look surprised. He just sighed and said, "You opened it." I nodded. "Read it." "Just a couple pages," I said. It wrote about me, about what I was doing." He looked at me with tired eyes. "Then I'm sorry, but you're the keeper now." I didn't understand what he meant at first. "What do you mean, the keeper?" I asked. Mr. Thorne rubbed his forehead like this conversation had happened many times before. That book isn't supposed to be opened. It's one of the anchor texts. We keep them here, locked away, catalogued quietly. That's the rule. You broke it. I felt cold all over. I didn't know. No one ever does, he said. I waited for him to explain more, but he just stared at the book in my hands. Finally, he spoke again. You can't put it back now. It's attached to you. That book, watches. It learns. And it writes. Writes what? Whatever it wants. But usually, it starts with your present. Then your thoughts. Then your memories. Then he stopped. Then what? Then it writes your future. I didn't know what to say. It sounded insane. But the pages had described exactly what I'd done. The picture thing. The fear. Even now, as I looked down at the closed book, I felt it like a weight in my arms. Like it was listening. Thorne walked to a locked drawer in his desk and pulled out a small, black notebook. He flipped through it, found a blank page, and handed it to me. This is yours now. Write everything down. Every word that book says to you. Every change in the pages. If it starts writing things before they happen, I need to know. What happens if I stop reading it? Thorne gave me a strange, pitying look. You can't. That night, I opened the book again. I don't know why. Curiosity, maybe. Or fear. Or both. I turned the page. He tried to sleep, but failed. The book called to him, louder than dreams. I turned another page. He asked. Thorne the wrong question. He did not ask who wrote the book. He did not ask how many keepers came before him. I froze. I hadn't thought to ask that, and now I was afraid to. The next day, I arrived at the annex earlier than usual. I hadn't slept much. I kept the book beside my bed, wrapped in a towel, hidden in a drawer. Still, I swore I heard pages turning in the dark. Mr. Thorne wasn't in his office. I waited 15 minutes, then took the opportunity to look around. His desk was neat, too neat. Everything lined up perfectly. But when I opened the bottom drawer, I found something he hadn't mentioned. A small cardboard file. No label. Just a faint circle drawn in pencil on the front split down the middle, like the symbol on the book. Inside were handwritten notes, dozens of them. Faded, smudged, some torn at the corners. Different handwriting, different ink. They all started the same way. Daily log keeper, no. 14. Daily log keeper, no. 15. Daily log keeper, no. 16. One note in particular caught my eye. It was dated only a year ago. Keeper, no. 19. The last entry read, "It writes the truth, but only parts of it." The book doesn't lie, but it doesn't always finish the sentence. Or it finishes it later, out loud. In your head, you start to feel like you're thinking its thoughts. Or worse, it's thinking yours. Below that, in shaky handwriting, "If you're reading this, your keeper, no. 20. Get out before it starts writing dreams." I sat back in the chair, feeling sick. I wasn't the first. I probably wouldn't be the last. I looked at the book, sitting on the table beside me. It hadn't moved, of course, but I felt it watching me again, like it knew I'd seen something I wasn't supposed to. I opened it. The next page was already filled. He read the logs. He learned too much. He stayed anyway. Tonight, it begins. That night, I dreamed of the book. Not just seeing it, but being it. I floated in a black room filled with whispering pages. A voice not mine, not anyone's, whispered, "You are the story now. Turn the page." When I woke up, my hands were ink-stained. My fingernails had black smudges under them, like I'd spent the night writing. The book was open on my desk. The page said, "He dreamed of the archive, the real one, buried deeper than the basement. Soon, he will find the stairs." I didn't want to go back to work that morning. I stood outside the library doors for almost an hour, staring at the bricks, the windows, the people coming and going. Everyone looked normal. No one had ink-stained hands. No one was dreaming about whispering books. No one else seemed to feel the pull, but I went in anyway. The book was still there on my desk, exactly where I'd left it, closed, quiet, pretending to be harmless. I opened the logbook and tried to focus on my actual job. I cataloged 3 dusty volumes, wrote their entries, filed them. My hands kept shaking. Every time I looked up, I expected the black book to be closer somehow. I told myself I wouldn't read it. Not today, but of course I did. He tried to work. He lied to himself. He opened the book again because it was already open. The page had changed. It was waiting for me. There is a door behind the last shelf on the left. I turned to look. The last shelf on the left had always been pressed against the wall, heavy, too tall to move. But now, there was space. Just a little, like someone had shifted it in the night. I don't know why I got up. Curiosity, maybe. Or maybe I already knew the book was right. I walked to the shelf, heart pounding. I pushed gently. The whole unit moved with a loud scrape. Dust rose in clouds. Behind it, where there should have been a solid wall, was something else. A small wooden door, maybe 4 feet high, old, no handle. Just a hole where the knob used to be. It hadn't been there before. I was sure of it. I leaned close. The wood smelled wrong, like damp earth and old paper, and something else, like ash. I shouldn't have opened it, but I did. Inside was a staircase, steep and narrow, carved into stone. No lights, just darkness falling away into more darkness. I heard whispering. I looked back at the table. The book's pages were fluttering, though there was no wind. I took a flashlight from my desk drawer and stepped inside. The stairs went down for a long time. The deeper I went, the colder the air became. The walls were damp and covered in faint scratches. Some looked like letters. Some looked like claw marks. Finally, I reached the bottom. The room wasn't big, maybe the size of a small bedroom, but the shelves, dozens of them, lined every wall. And every shelf held books, just like mine, black covers, no titles, just that same strange symbol. Some of the books were open. Some had candles beside them, long burned down, and in the center of the room, under a glass case, was something I didn't expect. A journal, titled, Keeper No. 1. Asterisk. I stared at the glass case, not sure if I should open it. Something about the journal inside felt heavier than it looked, like it had gravity, like it was waiting for someone to read it again. I wiped the sweat from my hands and lifted the lid. The air inside smelled of candle wax and dust. The journal was bound in dark leather, not black, but reddish brown, like dried blood. The name etched on the inside cover was handwritten, Dr. Elias Roque, -1913. I flipped to the first page. The handwriting was neat and sharp, like a professor's or a surgeon's. They told me to organize the archive, just the old ones, they said. Just the ones no one remembers, but the books remember. They speak, not with sound, with memory, with time. I read a book that described my childhood in exact detail. Then it wrote my death by fire. I burned it that night. The next morning, I woke with burns on my hands. There was no fire. I've begun cataloging the voices. I flipped ahead. Pages and pages of titles, names, markings, patterns, strange symbols I couldn't understand. Words that didn't look like English or any language I'd ever seen. Then I found the passage that chilled me. The book chooses the keeper, not the other way around. It follows the bloodline. It waits in the walls. It pretends to be forgotten. There have been 19 before me. I was the first to find the archive. I fear I won't be the last. If someone is reading this, run. I looked up from the journal. The books around the room were humming now, soft, low vibrations, like distant thunder. I could feel it in my chest. I turned in a slow circle. There were maybe 50 books down here, maybe more, all of them sealed, all of them watching. One sat on a pedestal in the corner, wrapped in chains, not locked, just ... held back. I took one, stepped toward it, and then I heard it, a whisper. Not in my ears, in my head. Do not free the seer. I froze. My flashlight flickered, buzzed, then went out completely. The room was swallowed in black, and the whisper came again. He will break the story. He will write the end. I ran up the stairs, stumbling, heart pounding, breath sharp in my throat. I slammed the little wooden door shut behind me and shoved the shelf back in place. When I turned around, the book was waiting on the table. Open. The page said, he found the archive. He read Roke's words. He met the voice in the dark. Soon, the book will ask a question, and he must not answer it. Asterisk. I stared at the glass case, not sure if I should open it. Something about the journal inside felt heavier than it looked, like it had gravity, like it was waiting for someone to read it again. I wiped the sweat from my hands and lifted the lid. The air inside smelled of candle wax and dust. The journal was bound in dark leather, not black, but reddish brown, like dried blood. The name, etched on the inside cover, was handwritten. Dr. Elias Roke, -1913. I flipped to the first page. The handwriting was neat and sharp, like a professor's or a surgeon's. They told me to organize the archive. Just the old ones, they said. Just the ones no one remembers. But the books remember. They speak, not with sound, with memory, with time. I read a book that described my childhood in exact detail. Then it wrote my death by fire. I burned it that night. The next morning, I woke with burns on my hands. There was no fire. I've begun cataloging the voices. I flipped ahead. Pages and pages of titles, names, markings, patterns, strange symbols I couldn't understand. Words that didn't look like English or any language I'd ever seen. Then I found the passage that chilled me. The book chooses the keeper, not the other way around. It follows the bloodline. It waits in the walls. It pretends to be forgotten. There have been 19 before me. I was the first to find the archive. I fear I won't be the last. If someone is reading this, run. I looked up from the journal. The books around the room were humming now, soft, low vibrations, like distant thunder. I could feel it in my chest. I turned in a slow circle. There were maybe 50 books down here, maybe more, all of them sealed, all of them watching. One sat on a pedestal in the corner, wrapped in chains, not locked, just ... held back. I took one, stepped toward it, and then I heard it, a whisper. Not in my ears, in my head. Do not free the seer. I froze. My flashlight flickered, buzzed, then went out completely. The room was swallowed in black, and the whisper came again. He will break the story. He will write the end. I ran up the stairs, stumbling, heart pounding, breath sharp in my throat. I slammed the little wooden door shut behind me and shoved the shelf back in place. When I turned around, the book was waiting on the table. Open. The page said, he found the archive. He read Roke's words. He met the voice in the dark. Soon, the book will ask a question, and he must not answer it. I didn't go home that night. I stayed in the annex, sitting at the desk with the book in front of me, too afraid to open it again, too afraid to look away. It hadn't moved. It never moved. But I could feel it, watching, waiting, thinking. I remembered what the page had said. Soon, the book will ask a question, and he must not answer it. I didn't know what the question would be, but I already felt it getting closer. like pressure building behind glass. At some point, I must have drifted off. I dreamed of fireflies made of ink. They flew around me, in circles, whispering my name in a dozen different voices. When I woke up, the book was open again. This time, there was no narration, no predictions, just a single sentence. "What do you remember about your mother?" I stared at the words. I hadn't thought about her in years. She left when I was a child, disappeared without a trace. No note, no explanation. My father said she'd walked out, but he never talked about it. Eventually, we stopped asking. My throat tightened. I almost said her name out loud, and then I remembered. He must not answer it. I slammed the book shut and shoved it into the drawer. For the next few days, I tried to go back to normal. I filed books, cleaned shelves, pretended the hallway lights weren't flickering more than usual. Pretended the shadows in the corners weren't moving when I wasn't looking. But the book never left my mind. It began whispering in my sleep, sometimes in my own voice, sometimes in my mother's. One night, I woke up with a phrase burned into my memory. I don't know if I dreamed it or heard it aloud, but I wrote it down. If you answer, it writes you differently. The next day, I found something strange in my desk drawer. A torn page, yellowed, fragile. I didn't put it there, but I knew where it came from. It had a single sentence written across it in neat, red ink. He didn't answer the question, so it asked someone else. Beneath that was a name I hadn't seen in years. My sister's. I called her immediately. No answer. I tried again and again. Finally, around midnight, she called me back. She sounded tired, scared. "Why are you asking? About Mom all of a sudden?" she whispered. I had a dream. You were in it. You were holding a book." My blood went cold. "What did it ask you?" There was a long pause on the other end. Then she said, quietly, it asked if I remembered. The last thing she said to me before she left. I didn't speak. "Didn't she leave in the night?" I asked. Another pause. "No," she said. "You were the one who said that. You were the one who told me she was gone." I suddenly felt very cold. The next time I opened the book, it was waiting for me. He forgot the truth. The book did not. I didn't go back to sleep after my sister called. I just sat on the floor in the corner of my apartment, staring at the book. I had taken it home again. I told myself it was safer with me, but I knew that wasn't true. It didn't matter where. The book was always awake. It was always writing. My sister said our mother didn't disappear in the night. She remembered a conversation, a hug, a door closing, but I didn't remember that. I remembered waking up to an empty house, my father staring out the window, hollow, a missing suitcase. Silence. Could both memories be real, or had the book changed? One of them. The next morning, I opened the book again. There were no new entries, just a single page with old, looping handwriting I didn't recognize. But the ink was still wet. Memory is the first draft of truth. Story is the second. Which one are you? I flipped to the next page. A list of dates. Each one had a name beside it. Names I didn't recognize, except for the last one. April 12th, Elias Roque, October 3rd, Rebecca Thorne, June 5th. Keeper no, the 16th of November, 18th. Your name. That was today's date. I felt something twist in my chest. It wasn't just a log, it was a schedule. I rushed to the library. Mr. Thorne was there, waiting for me. He looked tired, pale. His eyes didn't meet mine. "You've been reading too much," he said softly. "It's getting into you." "What's the list?" I demanded. "Why is my name there?" He sighed, opened a drawer, and pulled out a slip of paper. Without a word, he handed it to me. It was a page torn from a book. My book, it read. He confronted Thorne, but Thorne was only the next draft. I stared at him. What does that mean? But Thorne was no longer looking at me. He was looking through me, and then he whispered something I'll never forget. It wrote me years ago. I just finally caught up. That night, I dreamed of the archive again. The room was deeper now. The walls stretched up into a ceiling I couldn't see. The chained book in the corner was gone. In its place was a mirror. I walked toward it, stopped, because my reflection didn't move. It stayed still, watching, and then, slowly, it smiled. When I woke up, the book was open beside me again. The page said, he saw himself, but the story had already replaced him. Asterisk, it started small. I'd check the clock and see it was 3:12 p.m., then I'd blink, and it would be 4:06. I'd walk into the break room and forget why I was there. I'd reach for the bookhand, find it already open in my hands, though I had no memory of touching it. And then there were the pages I didn't write. One morning, I opened the notebook Mr. Thorne gave me, the one I was supposed to use to log everything the book said or did. Half the pages were filled, not in my handwriting. Same date, different entries. Some of the entries were too exact, to me. Descriptions of my dreams, my doubts, my private thoughts, things I never told anyone, things I hadn't even thought yet. One entry simply read, 9:33 a.m., looked into the mirror. Didn't blink, but I didn't look in the mirror that morning. Not until I read that. Then I did, and I didn't blink. That day, I sat at my desk and forced myself to stay still. No reading, no logging, just breathing. I kept my phone on the table and recorded myself. I wanted proof. If I was losing time, I needed to see it. For hours, nothing happened. Then, around 3 p.m., I blinked and the sun outside had shifted. My phone screen said 5:12. I hit play on the recording. For a while, it was just me, sitting there, breathing, tapping my foot, flipping a pencil between my fingers. Then I stood up. I watched myself walk to the shelf, pull the book out, sit down, and start reading slowly, carefully, page by page. I watched myself speak out loud, but the audio had no sound. My lips moved, but the recorder caught nothing. Then my image looked directly into the camera and smiled. That night, the book had a new page waiting. The story was tired of waiting. It took the pen. Underneath that, in red ink, if he forgets who he is, the story will remember. The next day, Mr. Thorne was gone. His office was empty. No note, no sign of struggle. His journal was gone too. I asked the head librarian if she'd seen him. She frowned. Mr. Thorne, she said. He retired years ago. I stared at her. Double quotes, no. I spoke to him 2 days ago. She looked at me like I was confused, doorsick. I think you're mistaken. We haven't had anyone named Thorne working here in over a decade. I walked back to the annex in a daze. I opened the bottom drawer of his desk, empty, but something was carved into the wood at the bottom. 5 words, jagged and shallow. Do not let I tinish. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. The book was on my desk again no matter where I tried to hide it. I had left it at the library, locked in the annex, stuffed behind shelves where no one would find it, and still, it came back. At first, I thought I was losing my mind. Then I realized the truth. I had already lost it. The morning was cold and gray when I walked back into the library. No one said hello. No one looked at me. It was like I wasn't even there. Like I'd become a ghost in my own story. I went to the annex. The shelves were darker than before. The lights flickered when I walked past. When I reached my desk, the book was open, waiting. The page was blank, except for a single blinking cursor, like it was still typing. I sat down slowly, heart hammering in my chest. The book didn't turn its pages anymore. It didn't have to. It was waiting for me. I flipped to the next page. It wasn't written in ink. It was a mirror. My reflection stared back at me, not exactly the same, slightly wrong. Its smile too calm, its eyes too dark. And then it spoke. I didn't hear it in the room, I heard it inside. "Tell me the ending." I froze. It wasn't a command, it was the question, the one I'd been warned about, the one the book had waited all this time to ask. Tell me the ending. And I knew what it wanted, not the truth. It wanted to know how I thought it should end, because the moment I answered, it would become real. The story would seal itself. I would be written in, inked over, erased, just like all the others, just like Thorn, just like Roke. I stood up and backed away. The book turned a page on its own. Words began to appear, letter by letter, burned into the paper like heat rising from a match. He told the ending. He said. I slammed the book shut. "No," I whispered. "You don't get to write me." It trembled in my hands. The cover burned hot. I ran. I didn't go home. I didn't go to a church or a police station. I went to the furnace room in the basement of the main library, one of the only places left no one ever checked. I opened the heavy metal door. Inside, the heat was like a mouth. I held the book above. The flames dot. It didn't scream. It didn't beg. But the fire didn't take it. Not at first. The pages curled. The ink bubbled. But the cover didn't burn. It clung to my hands like it knew. Like it knew I wasn't just burning a book. I was trying to burn myself out of its story. And maybe that was the price. Maybe that's why the keepers never lasted in the end. It did catch fire. And when it did, I heard a sound not with my ears, but somewhere deeper, like a record scratching, like 1,000 voices, all going silent at once. Then, nothing. Ash. Just ash. That was a month ago. I don't know if I'm free. Some days I still forget what hour it is. I still wake up with ink on my fingers. Still see things move in mirrors. But the book hasn't come back. Not yet. I started keeping a journal. A real one. Pen and paper. Nothing fancy. I write what I know to be true. I try to remember the old way. Sometimes it helps. Other times, I think I hear the pages turning again. And once, just once, I found a note tucked into the back of my journal, written in handwriting that looked almost exactly like mine. A story never ends. It just waits for a better narrator.